affecting dead people. Rather, it is fueled by the desire to come into contact with interesting people we might not otherwise know, but for the records of their minds they left behind. This historical sensibility gladly welcomes any source to use for eavesdropping: legal documents, novels, private letters, diaries, photographs, or a painting. No source need be too imposing, like a major tome of theological disputation, and no source is too insignificant, like marginalia in a text or an advertisement in a magazine. Though this book tends to rely on more traditional sources of intellectual history, works of philosophy, political and social theory, natural history and cultural criticism, it hopes to show that these are only some of the sources that can awaken us to all the ways Americans have constructed their realities and made meaning in their lives. In trying to access the mental and moral worlds of people from the past, American intellectual history asks questions about the possibilities for and limits on doing so. It raises questions such as the following. Is it possible to fully understand the intellectual motivations of historical actors? Can we apprehend how or why ideas have had the power to make Americans change their minds about, or take action on, a particular issue? How can we measure the influence of historical actors' ideas on social, political, and economic conditions, and vice versa? By posing such questions, this book invites thinking about thinking. But more important, it seeks to demonstrate that thinking is where so much of the historical action is. This story opens with the first contacts between European explorers and Native Americans in the late 15th century and carries the narrative up to American intellectual life in the early 21st century. Professional thinkers, sophisticated arguments, and intellectual classics are present here. But so are lay Christians, simplistic arguments, and ephemera. They are all here because they reflect the richly varied sources and expressions of Americans' intellects. These chapters attempt to portray some of the excitement of accessing American history through ideas, and to interpret how Americans throughout history have understood themselves, their nation, and their world. Ideas are never frozen in their time and place, nor are they vapors that float in some otherworldly, transcendent realm. Rather, they are historical forces that move, and thereby change, from one interlocutor to another, one place to another, and even one time period to another. To be sure, throughout our history, many Americans have exalted ideas like democracy, freedom, and equality, while others experience them as fighting words meant to deny them their benefits. But these ideas have achieved their power not because their meanings are absolute, but precisely because they are so fluid, so multivalent, and so prone to redefinition when they come into new conditions of possibility. The vibrancy of American thought lies in the movement of ideas as they have been enlisted to mean different things to different people throughout the American past. With all this talk of the past, it may seem that the present is far from view. Intellectual history does deal very much with America today, but it understands that our current political debates, economic fetishes, and moral commitments all have histories, and so today's America is the result neither of nature nor of necessity. It is the creation of historical circumstance, chance, accident, human folly, and wisdom, and sometimes all of these together. What most concerns us today might have seemed ludicrous to our ancestors, and what our ancestors perceived as having great urgency might have somehow become irrelevant for us. Why? That is what intellectual history tries to figure out. In seeking the answers, we achieve a little epistemic humility, which is indeed humbling, but also strangely energizing and ennobling. Chapter 1. World of Empires, Pre-Contact to 1740. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was America. The year was 1507, and the place Saint-Dié-des-Vosges, in the northwest of today's France. It first appeared on a map by Martin Waldseemüller in a book titled